The South African economy is still struggling to create enough employment. This has been highlighted in the fourth quarter labour force survey, which reflects a drop in the unemployment rate to 32.7%. That's as 169,000 jobs were gained between the third and fourth quarter of 2022. But the data also reveals that the number of people who are not economically active has increased by 95%, among other concerning issues in that reading. Labour analyst Andrew Levy joins us for more on this. Thank you so much, as always, for your time, Andrew. I think we need to put these numbers into perspective, particularly the difference when it comes to the expanded definition of unemployment in South Africa. It tells a starkly different picture from what that 0.2% drop represents.
Yes, it does. And I think it's terribly important that we dig a little deeper, because the headline news is a little bit misleading. Now, the first thing I want to say is that obviously we welcome the creation of any job. One job is one job more, and that's what we need. But we need to also bear a couple of things in mind. And the first and the most important thing is that unemployment is a long-term trend issue. Now, we all know, for example, to give you an analogy, that in winter the temperature goes down. But if I take the temperature today, in winter, I might find that today is a degree or 2 degrees higher than yesterday. I can't say that winter is over. It's not. So what we get is fluctuations around the trend. Now, particularly for the fourth quarter, we have the leisure industry, which hires a lot of people on a temporary basis to cope with the holiday season. We have an increase, hopefully, in retail trade. We have the January sales. So there is a lot of employment which is not temporary. That's the first thing. The second thing, so just to reiterate the point, we must look at the trend. The second point, and you make a good one, is we must distinguish between the headline figure and the expanded definition. And the difference is that the unemployed figure, the narrow definition, are people who have not worked in the last 30 days and are looking for a job actively. The expanded definition covers all of those people who have stopped looking for a job because they know that the chances of getting a job are very, very small. And we call them the discouraged work seekers. So to get a real idea of unemployment, you need to consider the narrow definition and the expanded definition. The other thing about the data is that it takes no account of what we call labour market churn, and that is movement within the labour market. So we have no consideration there of the number of new entrants who entered the labour market. And of course, come January this year, for this quarter, a large number of people will come in looking for a job, and very few people will find a job. And for that, we need to consider a figure that we call the labour market absorption rate. In other words, how many people who are coming into the labour market will find a job. At the moment, our labour market absorption rate is about 38%, which means something like 72% of job seekers will not find a job. Then we also have the issue that people drop in and drop out of the labour force. So I think that whilst we have a seasonal upturn in the number of employment, what we need to see is a long-term trend travelling in the right direction. And unfortunately, if you look at the trend from 2010 or 2015, it only goes one way, and that is down. However, every time we find a slight increase of employment, it lifts our hopes, and particularly for those people who have found a job, that is a wonderful thing. But I don't want to depress people, but if you want to get a real measure of unemployment and desperation, just look at the increase in the number of people on street corners who are looking for some kind of donation or selling fruit or whatever the case may be. We still have a long way to go.
As we cautiously welcome these numbers, I must ask about the near-term outlook going into 2023 for the first quarter numbers with the current challenges of load shedding, rolling blackouts that are affecting the economy and businesses that may need or be forced to shed jobs.
Unquestionably, and that's something that we haven't taken into account in our discussions. It's very difficult to run a business when you've got 8 hours of electricity, which is not there every day. Equally, come January, February, firms are doing their budgets, they're looking forward. If they have a negative look, then they're going to start moving into retrenchment. So we would expect the figures not to look that good. Retrenchments will continue. We've seen headlines that some of the major employers are considering job cuts. And of course, we'll have that whole tranche of job seekers who are leaving school, leaving university, entering the labor market. And that's where our figure of labor market absorption rate becomes important. So we may have a slight improvement in the numbers employed, but until the labor market churn, in other words, the turn in the labor market moves in the other direction, that people are being sucked in rather than being pushed out, the number of jobs created, in fact, is a little misguided, and we need to look at the longer-term trend.
Thank you for your contribution. We'll leave it there with Labour analyst Andrew Levy as we get perspective into the latest jobs data in the quarterly labour force survey that was released by Stats SA yesterday, representing a drop in the unemployment rate by 0.2%.